You can sit exactly what you're just doing right there. That's fine. What were you thinking, like, during that?
That I was absolutely insane. All of this crazy stuff happened, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, this is not safe. This is not responsible. You could go to a church in Nashville. Like, you don't have to drive all through the night to go to church. Like, this is not okay. But like, I couldn't, like, it was almost like it felt impossible to turn around at the same time. Like, I just felt like this drive that I had to be there. So I was raised in the Midwest. I had a mom, dad, brother, and sister. Pretty normal looking from the outside, but my dad, about the age of, when I was about 5, started doing drugs pretty heavily. And he did those, he was functioning until about the age of, when I was about 7, he couldn't keep a job. And so he started using alternate methods of getting his drugs he would actually exchange me with different people so that he could get money, so that he could feed his habit. And that went on until I was about 10 or 11, and the authorities found out and put me into foster care. And I was in foster care from the age of 11 until I aged out at 18. And it was a really dark and hard time. I felt like a lot of that was my fault, and felt really lost. My mom is a Jehovah's Witness, and so I was raised in that until I was taken into foster care. When I told the police what happened, I actually got shunned, which is kind of like the Amish version of your family just quits talking to you. And so that just ingrained even more that it was my fault. I felt God was angry at me. I felt completely alone. And then in foster care, it just wasn't good. I got bounced around a lot. Couldn't really stay in a family very long. I think total I had like maybe 20 different placements in 8 or 9 years. I felt that I didn't belong. I wasn't wanted. Nobody cared about me. I was broken or unlovable, and just felt like I didn't really have a place, or that even being on earth was a mistake. In foster care, one of the homes, the real children had made up a song, and they said that God made the rivers, God made the lakes, God made Amanda, well, we all make mistakes. And that was something that just like played over and over in my head, even, up into adulthood, that I was a mistake. And so I finally aged out of foster care, and I was trying so hard to survive, but I didn't know why. There wasn't a point, and very suicidal, attempted a few times. One time, pretty serious attempt, and I remember waking up in the hospital and the nurse was like, "You're so lucky to be alive," but I was like, I did not feel lucky at all. If anything, I was angry because I was like, not even death wanted me. I felt completely hopeless at that point. I did what I knew I could do to earn money and support myself and just survive. I started selling myself to keep a roof over my head, and ended up, a guy picked me up and made me start working for him. And that just kind of snowballed from probably the age of 20 until about 32 years old, so about 12 years. I got exchanged, was with many different men that controlled me. Very traumatic part of my life, very hard part of my life. Saw a lot of things, did a lot of things I'm not proud of, but it just even reinforced even more that there was no reason for me to be on this earth. There's no reason for me to be here. Felt like I was far too messed up and jacked up to have any hope. I was living in Montana at the time. I was cold, and I was walking down this street, and it was on a Sunday night, and I saw this church and the lights were on, and I thought I'll just go in and warm up for a few minutes. And I went inside, and it was, I guess, Super Bowl Sunday, so they were having a Super Bowl party. And they invited me in. They're like, come on in, have some food. And I was hungry, so I did, and started talking to a couple of people. And when they found out my story, they actually said, I'm really sorry that happened to you. They said there's probably much better suited churches for you. And they went and gave me a list of other churches, and they asked me not to come back. And I think that was one of the most heartbreaking parts of my life up until then, because it was I just felt so rejected and humiliated and dirty. And I was like, I will never step foot in a church again. I'll never trust God. I'll never like Christians. I took the risk, and I just felt like God was like, I don't want you. And so I left, and I swore I would never step foot in a church again, and kept that promise for a long time. About 5 years ago, I was living in Florida. I was owned, and I witnessed the man that was controlling me beat somebody really severely. And because I witnessed it, I knew that something could happen to me. And so I decided that I needed to get out. And I ran and ended up finding a safe house for women that have been through situations like mine. And they took me in, and I lived there for about 11 months. And it was like a Christian type facility. They wanted us to go to church. I refused. I wanted nothing to do with it. On the wall in the home, there's a scripture that said something about that God had plans for you and to help you prosper. And so many times I wanted to go rip the sign off the wall, because I was so angry. I was like, there's no way God has a plan or a purpose for my life, because my mind was made up that he didn't want me. So I wasn't even gonna try to have that, maybe change of heart. And so I stayed there and graduated after about 11 months, and I didn't have anywhere to go. And so I decided I wanted to go somewhere where I didn't have a history, where I hadn't been sold, where I hadn't had bad memories. And so I picked randomly Tennessee, and I got myself a job, got myself an apartment. Life seemed okay. I was like, things are gonna be okay now. I lived there for a while and met some mutual friends. Came up to Michigan a few weeks ago to just visit, just hang out, just get out of Tennessee for a while. I hadn't been out of Tennessee since I moved there, and decided I was just gonna kind of come up and hang out. And I knew they were Christians, but they didn't really push it on me. They'd say, they were going to church or whatever, and I just always really shut it down. I was like, I don't want to hear about it. Don't talk to me about it. They constantly were trying to get me to come, but I was like, no, I'm not, I don't want anything to do with it. One of my friends, she's like, you're coming to church. And I was like, no, I'm not doing it. And she's like, no, for real, you're coming. And so I came on one Sunday just because I wanted to make my friend happy, and I was like, just shut her up, I'll just go. It's gonna be a horrible experience, and then I can just go home. And I got here, and it wasn't. During worship, we were standing, and I don't know, there was some kind of song about God rescuing or something, and I remember just being so angry inside, because I didn't feel rescued. I didn't feel like he had done anything for me. I felt like I had been rejected, and I had my arms crossed, and I was just like, I'm not gonna even act like I'm into this. I was like, I don't care if people see me. God doesn't care that I'm here, so I'm gonna show him that I don't care about him. Then during the service, Pastor was talking about the peace of God. I remember just thinking, my life is such chaos. I don't remember ever feeling peace, ever, in my life. And I remember writing a note to my friend, and I was like, do you think God gives peace to anyone that needs it? And she's like, yeah, you can have peace. And I don't know, I think something in me, a little sliver of hope kind of was like, okay, maybe I can have some peace. And I remember standing there and just wrestling in my head and my heart and just wanting peace, but being almost afraid to admit that I needed it. All of a sudden, I just started crying, and I am not an emotional person at all. I've learned very early on how to be hard and how to not let people see that you're weak. And to me, emotions equated weakness. And so I was just standing there and started crying, and I was like, I've got to suck it up. I got to stop. And my friend noticed, and so she hugged me, and I just broke. I honestly feel like I cried 36 years of pain. Finally, I felt some of the weight I was carrying started to get lifted off. And so we go out into the lobby and we meet this lady, and she was just so nice. She ended up handing me a Bible and a book and a bag and I don't know, just a bunch of stuff. And it was like time after time, like anyone I met here, they just were nice, and no one asked like, what's your story? Like, you don't belong, are you saved? Like, nobody asked. They were just nice. And that was so different from my first experience with a church. It shifted something, but at the same time, my walls were so high and I was so guarded. I was like, it's just a nice experience. These people are nice, but if they only knew. So I fly out a couple days later and I just can't shake it. Like, I can't shake what happened that day. And I'm thinking about church, which is not something I've ever done. Why am I feeling this? What am I feeling? I didn't understand what I was feeling. And then that Saturday, it felt so heavy. Like, I felt so heavy. Like, I couldn't shake it. I was like, I need to go back there. I'm not working on Monday. I could drive up there. And I was like, that's ridiculous. That's like 10 hours away. Like, I can't, that's not responsible. About like 9:30 or 10 o'clock that night, I text my friend and I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I feel like I'm supposed to be at church tomorrow and I can't shake it. And she replied that she was feeling the same way, she just didn't know how to say that to me. And I was like, but it's just not responsible, I can't do it. As soon as I admitted it or vocalized that, it got even worse. Like, it made it even harder. So I finally, about 10:30 that night, I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna sleep tonight anyway, I might as well just go. And so I got in my car and 10:30 at night and drove all through the night. Took me 11 hours because of some crazy weather, and I got here like 15 minutes before church started. And I walked in the doors and it was, I don't know, like the craziest feeling. Like, I just felt like I was okay finally. I almost want to say peace. I don't know, it's just like this wave came over me and I was like, I'm okay, I'm here, I made it. During the service, the woman that spoke, she was talking about obedience and how when you're obedient to God, things happen. How, like, that's the place where miracles happen. I remember thinking to myself, like, how I needed a miracle. I needed something because the way my life was going, like, it's just me. I'm just surviving, and you can only survive for so long before you kind of run out of hope. I remember while she was speaking, I was flipping through this new Bible that I had been given. I hadn't touched it since I had been given it. And I am flipping through it, and I come across a place where it's in Psalms. It's Psalm 68, I think it was. And it's saying that God places the lonely in families. It was like those words just like jumped off the page, because since I was 10 years old, I hadn't had a family. I was like, I'm lonely and I need a family. And it really broke something inside of me. And I remember she was just talking about like God wanting you to be obedient, and it's not to like punish you if you don't, but it's just that he wants you. And I remember feeling like God was asking me to give him my heart. And that was a really scary thing, because I felt like anytime I had given anybody my heart in the past, I'd been really hurt. But I felt like he wasn't asking for it to take it away or because there was something messed up with me, but he wanted to make it whole. And my friend asked me, she's like, you know, are you ready to give your heart to God? And I was like, yeah, I'm ready. Let's do this. And so they prayed with me and I got saved, and I thought, okay, I'm I'm good now. Like I came, I did what I was supposed to, I'm good to go. And she's like, let's just stay around for the last service. I just think we should stay. And I was like, okay, we can do that. So we stay, and I'm sitting in my chair, and I'm kind of proud of myself. I'm like, I came, I did what I was supposed to, I was obedient, like, I'm good now. And then Kelly started talking again, and talking about obedience. And I was like, because I knew that even though I had just given my heart to God, I still had a lot of work to do. And I think I knew that part of that was like getting baptized, and not that that would fix it or make it all better, but it was a symbol of like washing away some of that junk. And I remember my friend telling me, just get baptized and leave it in the water. And I decided I would get baptized at the end of that service. And I remember getting into the water and just thinking, like, it was like almost everything from my past just like kind of played out in my head like real quick. And I was just like, I'm gonna do it. I feel like it really changed my life and started something that I wasn't even realizing how badly I needed. I feel like I just went on this really crash course, getting to know somebody type thing. So I want more time to actually like get to know God, and I definitely feel like I have more peace now, and I'm convinced now that He does have a plan, and hopefully He'll show me what that plan is.